Loud.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody joining us today. It's in lieu of our sales meeting in Visalia, we're having one of the great presenters of the state of California that comes over, and he's been doing this for us for several years now. Robert Brand has always kept us out of trouble, at least given us the advice. If you get in trouble on your own, that's because you're not listening. But Robert, we appreciate you. We appreciate you setting some time apart this morning for us, and please take it away.
Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you. I'll have to be careful what I click on. Thank you. Thank goodness for high tech. Everybody, thank you very much for coming here. And if you haven't heard me before, I kind of talk fast, but this is being recorded so you can listen to it later, watch it later. And I never go over time. I don't even go a minute over time. My dad was in the Navy, and I guess I learned that there to stay on time. So anyway, and if you have any questions, feel free to, if you're able to unmute yourself, just kind of yell out, "Hey, Robert," or something, or you can put them in the chat room, and I'll look at it occasionally as we go through this. So I think it's been a couple of years since I did a seminar for you, so I don't want to repeat this exact same material. So I'm going to kind of mix it up, new material, so to speak, and material that I've gone through before that are kind of some fundamental principles of disclosure that everybody needs to know. And I will email to your management seminar notes that have been updated, I think just a few weeks ago. So, and there's no cost for that. And you can use them, duplicate them, whatever you want. I always like to show this picture of, this is a seminar I did with Gov Hutchison, and only because Gov is of all the speakers from CAR, and I may have a personal prejudice on this, he just seems to know more than anybody. And if you ever have a chance to, when he comes through town, to listen to him, it's just absolutely worth it. So I just like to give him, he doesn't know I do this, but I like to give him a plug. So a big topic, this topic of avoiding litigation in the disclosure of a property's conditions is by far the #1 lawsuit in California against residential agents. No other state has the issue like we do, not even close, but California is unique. Most people, buyers, when they move into a home, and there's some relatively minor or moderate problem, they just pay somebody to fix it. But buyers here, when they move in, are besieged with attorney emails, junk mail kind of stuff. And so it's a big issue, but most of it's still preventable. Now, I do not sell anything to real estate firms, agents in any way, and I do not charge for what I'm doing now. So I'm very graciously sponsored by service providers. We have two, and I can't see everybody, but Laura, are you in the meeting now? And if you're not, maybe they can, if you come on, text me or something and say you need to be unmuted if that's the case. But Laura's with Choice Home Warranty, and I think she's going to try to get on just a little bit later. But we do have Virgil here, and he provides a wonderful service that's super popular around California. So Virgil, take it away.
Morning, everyone there at Century 21 Jordan Lake. My name is Virgil Flores. I'm the owner of Legal Services of America. Our company, for many years now, has specialized in the prevention of lawsuits against realtors. What Robert talks about is very important. Realtors are the second most sued industry in California, second only to doctors. And with our system in place, we will prevent over 99% of any threat of lawsuit from ever rising to the level of a reportable errors and omissions insurance claim. If we can't prevent the lawsuit through our mediation services, we'll pay the legal defense and we'll pay the E&O deductible. I'd be happy to come to your office meeting. These services are in no conflict with corporate counsel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good. And there's a kind of, I forgot to advance it, a kind of a synopsis for after closing, mediation services, phone consultation prior to closing. And it's just a absolutely wonderful service, and it's just super, super popular. And as it says here, the services do not conflict with corporate counsel. Okay. Let's see. We'll see if our home warranty rep can come in here a little bit later, or she can call me or whatever, and we'll get her on. So let's get going. So on the visual inspection, I'm assuming everybody there uses the AVID form. It's not a mandatory form. A lot of people think it is, but it's not. But it's really does a good job in helping to avoid litigation. And a question that may arise is the agent's inspection limited, as it you see circled there, to only visual observations, and that seems like it would be so based on what you see there. But the answer is actually no, even though it says visual inspection and that wording has not changed. It's really interpreted in court as any sensory perception. So not only visual. And two examples would be you're doing your very limited, and it is very limited, agent's inspection of a property, and you get the feeling that the hallway floor is slightly uneven. I don't mean just out of control, but slightly, or there's an unusual smell in the house somewhere, often in the kitchen. Well, those are things that you actually do not see, but they're not visual, but they're worthy of disclosure. So it's really a multi-sensory kind of a thing, not only visual. The two categories, this is pretty fundamental stuff that we have a responsibility for disclosing, are defects and or red flags, both of them, but not more than that. So like obviously a defect, like you're at the kitchen and there's a window, kitchen sink, window. A good disclosure for that cracked window would be windows cracked. That's all. It's not a big crack, small crack. It's not from the Frisbee, the baseball. There's 3 cracks, just cracked window. Fewest words you can to get the message across. And then the other category is red flag, and that's where you don't know if anything's wrong. There's an indication that something was wrong, but you don't know if it could have been fixed, 12 years ago or something. So you're in the, say, family room and you see something like that. So a good disclosure would just be stain noted. It's not a big stain, small stain. Those can all be debated. It's not a water stain. I don't know if it's from water. It could be from wine, stored wine. It could be from any number of things that they may have in the attic and it just blew up or something. So just stain noted, discoloration noted. We want to keep it real basic like that. Lots and lots of challenges. Let me just go through a few of them here, a couple of them. Let's say I'm in the living room doing my AVID, and I can't find anything to say, anything to write down. It looks great. That's first of all, that's good because there's less chance there's going to be a lawsuit emanating from the living room. But a lot of us in the business want to have something to say to kind of prove that we actually went into that room. So I'll go to one more and give you a solution. Let's say I'm in the master bedroom. Can't find anything to say. Looks great again. I'm never going to say it looks great. That's for advertising, not for disclosure. But I notice up in the corner, whatever, ceiling, wall juncture, there's like a little spider web. Well, it's too minor. It doesn't deserve a disclosure. It doesn't rise to the level of something that would affect the value or desirability of the value or desirability of the property. So the best expression, by the way, I've been doing this, if I didn't mention it already, for 32 consecutive years. Professionally is the only thing I do, and I do it pretty well equally spaced throughout California and only California. And the most popular expression that seems to work the best in litigation prevention is nothing noted. So that's what I recommend, but make sure it's okay with company policy. What do you do when you can't find anything anywhere, and the home is immaculate, which is, by the way, good in terms of less potential for litigation, but it may look a little bit odd because it almost looks like we could have filled out the AVID sitting at home, not even going to the property. Well, short of breaking something, there are some things that we can do. So I have these surfaces here, and I do this all over the state. So like in Southern California, the stucco siding, I never show wood siding because there's almost no wood siding there. There are homes like in Bel Air, Beverly Hills that are 20 million that have stucco siding. It's very common. And then like wood siding, wood panels, whatever, very common, lots of places. Brick, either all brick, not too often, or brick accents. And then on the right, the good old concrete patio and driveway. Um, it's pretty hard to find these surfaces not cracked. So a really good disclosure, and this again will be all in the notes that you'll get. Some cracks noted, and wherever you've seen them, and you're going to see them stucco siding, if there's brick or certainly driveway patio. It's pretty hard to find these surfaces, the ones that I've named, that have no cracks at all. Now, we don't want to call them settling cracks. They're not big, they're not small, just some cracks noted at wherever, exterior siding and backyard patio. It doesn't freak anybody out. And by the way, the word some is really good, because if the only cracks you can find anywhere are in that backyard patio right behind the house, um, and you can count them, there's like 1, 2, 3, and they're hairline. Better not to use the word hairline, but there's 3 cracks. Well, maybe there's patio furniture there, and maybe the buyer's really picky. And when that gets taken off the patio, lo and behold, there's a 4th crack, and then they get freaked out over, you said 3 and there's 4. And so some is a good generic word that is almost impossible to disagree with. And if somebody can't disagree with something, then they really can't get involved in litigation. And if you're wondering, well, we all know where to write these things on the forms that we have, but if you haven't got to it yet, or the form's filled up, the AVID, the TDS, in this case, the AVID, there's just a lot of information and you've run out of room. Don't forget about that last insert there, last other observed or known conditions not specified above. Sometimes that can be used and it often is not. Okay, and if you have, I'm going to check the chat room. I might have already mentioned this to say if there are, any questions, you can put them in the chat room, unless you're going to just interrupt me or something. That's fine. Stating the obvious. This is when you're involved with a property and there's something near it, and it's obvious. Like in this case, you have the listing on the home to the right, where you can just see the white fence there, and there's a school across the street. So you know that any buyer that moves in here, they're going to have some issues, not necessarily bad ones, but it's going to be some distinct ones. First of all, there'll be gridlock in the morning and the afternoon for student drop off and pick up. And some areas, the gridlock, I mean, you cannot get out of your driveway for like 45 minutes morning and afternoon. It's really a big deal. And there's going to be noise from sporting events, even on the weekend. And maybe depending on what grade level we have, students will like hang out on the fence here, the white fence in the yard, and the homeowner may not like it. I mean, it's going to be ramifications. So we need to make a disclosure even about things that are incredibly obvious to us. Excuse me. Never hesitate to disclose something when you think it's just like really, really too obvious, and it'd be an insult to somebody's intelligence. Give you a couple other examples. So here, okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry. This is like LA, obviously. I've driven through here a lot. It's always very crowded. Anyway, look at the house on the right. It's really hard to get closer to a freeway. And a very good example of a common disclosure by a seller is just that, there's it's noisy during rush hour or something. Well, that's too specific, because the buyers that are more sensitive to the noise, they haven't gotten used to it yet. And I say, it's noisy all the time. Now, we might think, and justifiably so, that anybody can see this, any buyer can see it, but that doesn't make any difference. We still have to make a disclosure. It's got to be done very, very systematically, no matter how obvious it is. If it's an airport nearby or whatever. I'll get to the answer to these and all. And just one more one more photo, excuse me, shopping center. It's kind of near where I live, and it's got 5 buildings. It's a big place. There's a Target on the left and a big box supermarket on the right. So it's very, very active. And you see these homes above. They're nice view homes, kind of a little slightly customized, and they more expensive because of the view. And neighbors there that live up there have complained because, especially behind Target and the supermarket, there are deliveries 24 hours a day. Typically, guys in forklifts that back up, beep, 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 and they're, yelling at each other or whatever, help me with this or do that, or don't forget that load. And the complaint is this is going on at like 2:30 in the morning. So they say, we kind of thought that we would get some peace and quiet here. And so we have to make a disclosure. Now that's just noise. I don't have my car keys here, but a lot of people, depending on how high tech you are still locking the doors, with the key fob, and you hear a beep. So you hear beeps all day long. So first of all, the principle is, yes, disclose things that are obvious. It's not an insult to anybody's attention. We just have to disclose them properly. And it's easier to disclose them properly than it is to do them wrong. Excuse me for clearing my throat. I don't want to mute because I'm going to get stuck there. So let's do an answer or two. So when we're disclosing something near the property, just a good principle, and this will be in the notes that you get, disclose what is there. This is my suggestion. Never a list of details of what may bother the buyers about what is there. Because if you write down details, a litigious buyer or their attorney, who's going to probably be litigious, they just come up with something that you didn't mention, and then they've got a lawsuit. And there's a way to do this. More of it's in the notes, but here are some examples. With the home near the freeway, there's a freeway near the house. If you make a list, it's noisy, there's vibration, and you forget to mention that flat tires fly off the freeway sometime, they'll go after you for that. So freeway near the house means anything and everything that you might experience by being that close to a freeway is going to be part of your life. Now, another thing, think, well, you can't miss the freeway. You could touch it. It's right there. It doesn't make any difference. Still have to disclose it. School is close to this property. That covers whatever they complain about, a buyer might complain about, maybe want to sue about, and they're being encouraged by an attorney that's after them for the business. School close to the property, it's going to be gridlock. There's going to be kids on the fence. There's going to be noise. There's going to be weekend, cheerleader practice or football practice. It's going to be part of your life now, of the buyer's life. Now, a mistake that we can make is to say, well, anybody who buys this home can see there's a school right there. Why do I have to tell them this? It's because we're in California and things that are obvious, if they're not disclosed, can get us into difficulty. So better not to make a list. And back to the good old supermarket or shopping center. Shopping centers located behind this property. Any complaint that could come from the homeowners up above there, especially behind Target with the 24-hour deliveries and the forklifts and all that, isn't that disclosure. We had no idea that there would be deliveries at the Target store at 3 in the morning. That's because, as disclosed, there's a shopping center behind your home. And now you think, well, I don't even have to say it. It's so obvious, but we still want to make a disclosure, where it's not an insult to their intelligence. So a blanket statement of what is there, may I suggest, is better than a list, because the list will never be complete, especially like near a golf course. Golf balls hit the house once a month or hit the whatever, and all of it can be argued. Just there's a golf course adjacent to this property, or wherever it is. Okay, rough draft or final disclosure. Let me just see if there's any questions here real quick in the chat area. Oh, I see. Laura and Marilyn are waiting to be unmuted. So let me just see if I can go there. The other sponsor I have. Let me just see if I can go back to their logos. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, good.
And they did unmute me. I don't know if Laura was able to unmute.
Okay, so
Um,
go for it and tell us all about the wonders of Choice Home Warranty.
oh, well, thank you, and thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Sorry, we were on, and there's no way for you to see my video. It's not letting me
yeah,
my video with you, so
right,
it's waving at you like we're here, we're here. We just can't hear us.
right.
And I don't know if we're able to undo Laura because she is with us too, but I think she's muted.
Okay.
Um, we are so excited to sponsor you, Bob. You and I, gosh, we've known each other for many, many years.
Mhm.
And I've always loved watching how fun you make learning how to stay out of court. And we're blessed and honored to be sponsors with you. And we also are here as a home warranty to help your agents stay out of court as well. I just wanted to start today with a big introduction for Laura Hungforth. I'm sure most of the agents on the Central Valley do know Laura. She's been in the industry for many, many years. And we're just so blessed to have her join us at Choice Home Warranty. Laura, are you able to speak at all?
Yes, I think I'm finally
Yeah,
unmuted. Can you
There
hear
you
me?
are.
we can hear
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. And a lot of you guys already know. And as of this year, I've been 31 years in the real estate business, and I'm excited now to be a part of Choice Home Warranty and also to be able to serve you guys as your home warranty rep. So please take down my phone number, my email, call me, and also, I'd love to stop by the office. I'll bring some brochures, and any questions you have or anything you need, please give me a call.
Okay,
And so,
great. And if you could put your info in the chat room too and your number and so forth, that'd be great. They
okay.
can have that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, thank you. Let me advance and not repeat everything I just said. Excuse me. Okay, we're on the shopping center. I'll just kind of come back into here. So blanket statements are better. Freeway near the house. Anything and everything that could bother somebody about living in a home near a freeway, as if they didn't notice it from the beginning, is in that disclosure. Anything you can think of. If you make a list, the litigious seller, I'm sorry, buyer, or the attorney will come up with something not on the list. A school is close to this property. We had no idea kids would be hanging on our fence at lunchtime. Well, that's because there's a school close to the property. It's just a good generic rather than making a list of specifics. So, and on the shopping center, probably a shopping center is located behind this property. Now, a lot of people in the business don't write that down because they think it is so blatantly obvious, but it just takes a second to disclose it. And you would be surprised at how many buyers would say something like, I knew that there was a shopping center there, but I never go there. I don't know anything about it. I figure they all close about 8 or 9 in the evening, and I wouldn't care, but that doesn't cover it. There's a lot of other issues that can emanate from a failure to disclose. All right, real simple technique. This will just take a second. Take a rough draft disclosure. You just, on your laptop or pen and paper or whatever, before you put it on the transfer disclosure statement or the AVID. And it doesn't cost anything. You don't have to download an app. And it takes about a half a minute. So let's say, as an example, I'm walking around the property doing my AVID type inspection, and I see a couple of stains like this. Let's make it in the kitchen. That'll even be better because stains in kitchen walls are more potentially problematic because there's water in the walls because of the dishwasher, the faucets, and all that. And it can be just a unbelievable experience when a buyer has to move out of the house because it's going to take the guys in the, I call them moon suits, astronaut suits, like 3 or 4 weeks to get this resolved or more. So looking at that, what would you say? Well, a lot of agents, since I look at tons and tons of AVIDs, a very common expression would be there are 2 black mold stains to the left of the refrigerator on the wall or something like that. So they start out with that, but we just have to clean it up. Not a big job, but we don't want to mention numbers that we might have missed something, or there's a small stain and we didn't see it. There's no reason to list a number. Small, no reason to list that. Never mention the color. And there's no way on earth I am ever going to write down the word mold. So my disclosure, and it's an ideal one, is just stains noted at wall to left of refrigerator. And that single disclosure can save you save the day, save the year, and save a lot of money. So we really, fortunately, are going in the direction of making the disclosure more brief, not making it, you take a disclosure like this and we got to expand it. That can be challenging. This is shrinking it down, which is usually pretty easy to do. So that's rough draft to final disclosure. All right, next, should you disclose wear and tear items? These are things that are just, you know, part of living in a house, and they don't really, the big issue is do they affect the value or desirability of the property? And usually not something in this category. But things like some of the paint is peeling or wallpaper, I don't mean like catastrophic, just a little bit, scuff marks. Some of the carpets, I don't mean terrible shape, but a little bit soil, a little bit dirty or faded or whatever. So generally speaking, if it's right in the middle of the wear and tear category and the home's a few years old, excuse me, usually there is no disclosure for these observations. So that's the first answer. Because once you start disclosing wear and tear issues, you have to disclose all of them in the house. And that means the burden of filling out the AVID and going to addendums is needlessly expanded. And it's actually a litigious thing to do because you're never going to catch everything. And buyers can say, well, you got the spider web in the master bedroom, but you didn't get the other, minor things somewhere else in the house. So the result can be way too much in the AVID. And a good illustration of this is a game. I've never played it, but it's called Where's Waldo? And Waldo is this guy kind of in the middle with the red and white striped shirt. And I like to say Waldo is the, excuse me, meaningful disclosure that we really want to get out there. But we've got so many other minor disclosures about things that nobody cares about that do not affect the value or desirability of the property, and they never get to see Waldo, or it doesn't seem to ever make a difference to them. They're overwhelmed with information. All right, let me just look at the chat room. There may be a question here. Let's see. What's your position on including the fact that dryers have gas or electric service? I've never seen an issue with the lack of specifying if it's a gas fired or gas powered, whatever, or electric dryer. Usually it could, is anything wrong with mentioning it or disclosing it, but in terms of like an AVID level disclosure, red flag disclosure, I would say usually not, overwhelmingly usually not. So, okay, should you take photos? Good question. Should you take photos during the visual inspection? Excuse me again for clearing my throat, but I can't mute, so I can't save you from that. So I'm not talking about your, like a home inspection or filling out the AVID. The issue is, and I'll just back up, should you take photographs of it or video? That's what, not just by you're looking at something, but you're recording it for all perpetuity. There's a crack like that. Oh gosh, that looks pretty bad. Maybe it is. You wouldn't say that to the client, but maybe it's nothing. Who knows? But I'll take a picture of it to kind of establish what it looked like when I was here. Well, that means you're going to be using cameras, and we do a visual inspection. Doesn't say anything about photography or binoculars, like looking at the roof, two-story home or something, or any kind of the things you plug into an outlet and you can tell quickly if it's grounded or not. None of that stuff. It's just simple, doesn't take too long, visual only inspection. So not a big fan of disclosing things that are outside of that standard of care. And if you start taking pictures of the crack and the stain and the missing roof tiles or whatever, you'll never have enough photos to satisfy the opposing side. The fact that, well, say if you don't have any photos, I don't mean for advertising, for disclosure, that's great. If you do, and you take a picture of the crack and the stain, you can be accused of not mentioning something else, that's kind of minor, because you've already kind of set the tone for what you want to do. And the only exception I know of to this is the rest of the house looks okay, and this is your last stop on purpose, usually your last stop. And the rest of the house is in pretty good shape. You can get around at least, even maybe good housekeeping, you can get around. But this is like, oh, well, I think we all agree that we've got to disclaim the room. There's a little trick to this, and it's not really a trick in terms of deceptive, but it's a great thing to do. And most of us probably do it. But I've got a document that I could not get in here that this is not part of my visual inspection. I'm excluding it. And depending on office policy, but this does work pretty good, at no cost prior to escrow, when and if this gets cleaned up, I will come back and finish my AVID form, or finish at least this part of it. And the thing that's great about those declarations that are tacked up here and there is they usually stay in the file in perpetuity. So if there's ever an issue with this room, because way in the back there that you could never get to, there's some exposed wiring or something and it causes a fire, what remains in the file, or should, and usually does, is your statement that you'll come back and look around, do your visual inspection. It just needs to be cleaned up first, and you were never called back. There's no record of a return visit. So it can be a really good protection for you. So it says visual inspection, as we know, is circled. So I'm not in favor of outlet testers, of binoculars, of drones. I'm not talking about home inspectors, but agents using them. Just a somewhat casual, somewhat focused, I was going to say stroll, but probably just walk through the property without getting into detail. Okay, let me look and see. I think we may have another question here. Does everyone know that Zip Forms has a feature that allows us to upload photos to the AVID form? Yeah. Okay, I'll just mention that. Now, the question is, that's what is said there by, yeah, I'm not sure what the name is true. The question is whether or not it should be done. And there's a lot of things that we can do that we shouldn't do because they unnecessarily extend our liability, and we never needed to do them in the first place. And we end up going to court over something that we shouldn't even have commented on. However, some agents, some companies, some broker owners, managers like the photos. And I always say, go with what your company policy is, not with me or anybody else to give it advice, because that's, I think, just a better decision to make. All right. Okay, never surprised. Excuse me. Buyers never should never be surprised by anything when they move in. Basically, surprise buyer sue. So it's sort of like almost anything can be wrong with the property, kind of messed up, as long as the buyers know about it in advance and they have well, first of all, they know about it. That's just a proper thing to do. And plus, they're not going to be able to sue, or they shouldn't be able to sue. So this is an interesting case. This is kind of near where I live, and so I drive by it a lot. And we have a vacant lot, and you see with that one house there with the roof, but it's part of a development. There's like 40 houses out there, but this is the one that was in litigation. So out-of-state buyers move in. There are very few disclosures about the property, about this house. So they really didn't expect anything. The first day in the property, they got there about 8 or 9 in the morning, and they were inside unpacking and stuff. And they heard a noise that was so loud and so unusual, they never heard it before, but it's like overwhelming. Well, it so happens that this vacant lot is used as a hot air balloon launch, airport pad, whatever. It's been going at least 20 years that I've just noticed myself. And they actually do 3 balloons. There's 2, you can see 2 there, but they usually do 3 a day. And it doesn't take any more than like about 90 minutes, but those 90 minutes, it is unbelievably loud with the motor to blow the hot air and the balloon or whatever. The issue isn't the balloon thing. The issue is that the buyers nearby were never told about it. So that's not something they would expect. They were surprised, as you see at the top. And they usually, some exceptions. Usually the only buyers who sue are buyers that are caught off guard, that are surprised. So we just take away the surprise factor. So when representing the seller, a good question to ask is there anything about this property that the neighbors are going to tell the buyers? Now, neighbors are often ever so helpful to tell their new next door neighbor what's wrong with the area. And it may be a slanted opinion. It may not be in the category of something you as an agent would disclose or maybe even know about because you don't live there. But that's a good question. Anything about this property the neighbors are going to tell the buyers? Good thing to ask. So something like hot air balloons, yeah, I'd mention. And by the way, there was a lawsuit there, and all that the seller had to do is say that the vacant lot behind our home is utilized as a launch pad or airport for hot air balloons 7 days a week. And there's some noise involved, and that's it. And there would have been no lawsuit, no judgment, nothing. Same theme here. You know, a lot of towns, cities, municipalities in California, maybe elsewhere, have neighborhoods like this. Maybe there's usually kind of one neighborhood in a community like this where they go, I like to use the term overboard, but I don't mean that as a negative, in a negative way. They just go to elaborate Christmas decorations, maybe Halloween as well. And doing a get up like this is really, really expensive. I've seen them in the $30,000 to $40,000 range to have something like this done, depending on what they do. And now here's the tricky part, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. Some homeowners associations pay for the people that live there to do this, at least on a certain, one of the roads that it's traveled on, or they reimburse, or they pay half of it, or they do nothing at all. And sometimes there is pressure placed on a buyer who never knew about this. Halloween's coming up, Christmas is coming up, it's time to do our decorations, and they just don't want to spend the money. And so that is a disclosure issue. So, and this is totally different, same topic, but very different scene. This was involved in a lawsuit where buyers move in, and there was about a month after they moved in, it rained, and there was a roof leak. Well, so happened that the sellers, it's hard to believe this happens, had this tarp that they had there all year long, especially in the winter, but certainly summer too. And when the home was on the market, they just removed it. Well, a neighbor happened to take a picture of it. In fact, more than one neighbor did. And so that was presented to the buyers because they had a leak after it rained. And of course, the buyers prevailed in that lawsuit. So in representing the seller, great question to ask. Is there anything about this property that the neighbors are going to tell the buyers? Now, this is worth, unless there's some exceptions, but if it's in especially a higher end neighborhood, this is worth a sit down meeting. I don't mean scheduling it Wednesday at 7 p.m. or something, but to take it seriously, like in the kitchen or something. Could you give me a moment of your time to this sellers, and you're representing them? Is there anything goes on? I'm familiar with the area. Got friends that live here, but anything goes on here that's unusual, holiday related? You might even bring up 4th of July or Christmas or something. And most of the time, no, there's nothing special or unusual, but sometimes you'll get valuable information like the Christmas decorations that are, I say over the top, but I don't mean that as a negative thing. And again, only surprise buyers sue. Buyer moves in and they see a crack like that. Now that you never want to call it a settling crack, by the way. That's a geological deduction term. A general contractor term, maybe not, maybe even above that into the soils engineering. But if it's painted over, that's usually not a bad idea because it's been there. The sellers have lived there for 18 years and it's been there ever since, and it's not getting any bigger. You got to handle each case differently. But just keep in mind that there can be a problem, and the buyer won't sue, usually will not sue over it if it's just disclosed. we don't want them surprised. We want them moving in and saying, oh yeah, I remember that crack when we were looking at the home, and I stood there and talked about it with the seller or my agent, and it's been there for 15 years and hasn't gotten any better, whatever the story is. And they're not going to sue. They're just going to get some spackle and paint over it or whatever. So just look at something. Is there any chance the buyers are going to be surprised by this? And if the answer is yes, then you want to disclose it. Let's see, about 20 more minutes to go. Let me look at the questions again. Anything new? Okay. There was a house that the neighbors all said was haunted. Yeah, the listing agent did disclose this in the listing. Was that proper? Yeah, if the sellers believe it's a haunted house, even though you may not believe in ghosts or the afterlife or whatever, it doesn't make any difference. A lot of people do, and a lot of people believe in haunted houses and all that. And so, yeah, it is a disclosure issue. Now, I live in San Diego, and about 6 miles from where I live is the Heaven's Gate home, or was. So that's where they had like well, I guess it was called a cult, and they had like 35 or 40 people, mostly young people. I used to see them around town. They had a kind of wear sort of a purple robe or something like that. You could identify them. And they all committed suicide, and you had all those people dead at one time. So they changed the name of the street after it happened. It's a very short street. They changed the address, of course. And the home just would not sell. Just a little update on that, on the Heaven's Gate thing. And then somebody bought it, lived in it. They sold it, moved out, and it couldn't be, or I'm sorry, they didn't sell it, couldn't be resold. And so it was leveled, it was scraped, and now there's a totally different, truly totally different house there. And but there's still a disclosure, for that home when it's being sold. So, okay, avoid completing the AVID during the home inspection. This is really, really good info here. I'm glad I got to it. And now, when you are on the listing side, it is usually relatively easy because of your relationship with the sellers to get in there and do your AVID type inspection. And the sooner you can do it, the better, unless they have major repairs coming. But if they don't have them scheduled, it's just good to just get it done. Of course, you have a date on it so they know when you were there. But this is when it is the buyer's agent there, and the buyer's agent's trying to get into the property a little bit tougher than if they had the listing, because they don't know the seller usually. And but if it is humanly possible, I like to say this at the beginning, I realize sometimes it cannot be done this way because the sellers maybe don't cooperate. But if there is any way possible that you could get into the home without your buyers, before the buyers arrive, could be the same day or a day before or whatever, do your AVID inspection so that you're there by yourself, or the sellers may be home, but you're doing it on your own, and get it done and have it dated prior to the home inspection, where the buyers want to be there, they want to meet the home inspector, they want to follow the inspector around and so forth. Because let's say in this property, let's say this is the master bedroom. I've done my AVID, I'm there by myself. I don't see anything to disclose here, just, it looks like it's okay. But if the home inspector's there and the buyers are following the guy around, and I happen to be in the room where I'm following him around, which is not a good idea, he's going to take that flower painting off the wall, and maybe this is behind it. Now that would have to be dealt with either way, but when I did my agent's visual inspection, since I don't move things out of the way as a real estate licensee, I'd have no disclosure here. And I would be, at least in theory, and usually in practice, off the hook, because I don't go up in attics. I don't climb on roofs. I don't have special gadgets to look at water, a scope to see if there's water in the walls. It's a limited visual inspection, and I do not move anything out of the way. And if I can't get to something because the things are blocking it, I just exclude it. They can always call me back, but I don't do anything physically. I just I like to call it a focused stroll through the property. And now it still has to be dealt with, but I'm in a much less litigious position, as I should be. It's not tricking anybody. I should be. So I'm not the home inspector. I'm not the seller. I'm representing the buyers. I don't know anything about the house. I'm in a much better position if I stayed within my standard of care and didn't do my visual inspection at the same time the home inspector is doing his. I know it can't always happen that way, but it's really good to make an effort. So a snapshot of this, always complete the AVID. Prior to the home inspection, if they're planning on doing repairs, that's kind of a controversial issue. Often repairs that the sellers say, oh, we're going to fix this leaky faucet in the garage by the water heater. We're going to do this. Most of the time they don't. It's better, some exceptions, but better get in there, do your visual inspection, so you can come back when changes are made or repairs have been done. And I would say in 90% of the time, they never get done. And then later, it's a great idea if your buyers are going to be there, even if they're not, for you to attend the inspection, but better to like just sit it out, just go to the kitchen counter and get some work done, whatever. So that works well. Okay, I don't see another question here. So let me just check one more time. It says there's a question, but maybe there is one. Let me go down. Oh, there is a very large pine tree behind a house that is causing damage to solar panels and lifting concrete. Seller has not been able to remove the tree due to city's denial of application. How to disclose? Yeah, it would be a disclosure issue. It's causing damage, and kind of like what I just read, ultimately for the buyers, whichever side you're on, the buyers are the ones going to do the suing. This is very well worded. There is, I would say, I'd modify it a little bit. There's a large, I wouldn't say very large tree. I wouldn't even say pine. That's debatable. Even if you know it's pine, behind a house that has reportedly caused damage to solar panels and whatever about concrete. Seller has not been able to remove the tree due to the city's denial of application, period. And that'd be a very good disclosure. Yeah, it's good. I'll see if I can include that in the notes. All right, 15 minutes here. So very popular form. Let's take the arrow and go all the way down to neighborhood noise problems or other nuisances. Now let me go back. Let me back up here. Notice that I'm going to move some of these graphics out of the way that I have here. It says, are you, the seller, aware of any of the following? Now, some agents don't notice that, and they're looking around for things that bother them, like as if they were moving in. But it's not our opinion. It's for the seller's opinion, only if they're bothered by it or concerned about it. So moving again down to, let's see here, this one, neighborhood noise problems, other nuisances. A very common one is the chronically barking dog next door, a couple doors down. It's out all day long, all night long. It barks at everything. And that is considered by many a neighborhood noise problem or other nuisance. And for most sellers, they would want to disclose it. Most buyers would like to know about it. The problem is not all would. There was a lawsuit where sellers it was actually a German Shepherd like this dog. It just never stopped barking. I lived near there. I drove by. Every time I drove by, I could hear the dog barking when a car went by. The sellers went into court because they were sued for not disclosing it because it was just out of control. And they were husband and wife, kind of older, and they were both weeping on the stand how much they love their dog. We love hearing it. We've had it for, 14 years or something. We'll miss it when it's gone. We love hearing it bark. And they're sobbing, very believable. I think they were telling the truth. But for them, it wasn't a nuisance. And keep in mind, it's the seller's opinion of whether it's a nuisance. Now, if you're aware of it, I would disclose it, there's a barking dog next door or something. I've got covered that in the notes. But the sellers are under no obligation unless they really consider it a nuisance. It's kind of like the asbestos thing in the popcorn ceiling for homes that were built before whatever, I forget what year it was, used to know. Well, is that a problem? Well, many homeowners, especially if they're elderly, don't even know anything about it. So they're kind of off the hook because they don't know. So keep in mind that we may want to disclose something like the chronically barking dog, but that the seller is under no obligation if they do not consider it to be a nuisance. So I'm sorry about the arrow going up and down here. But here's our neighbors with the loud dog, and they could say that our dog is driving us crazy, or we absolutely love our wonderful pet and it doesn't bother us. And therefore, let's say these are the sellers, we never disclosed it. And it was from a neighbor nearby or something. So it could be either one. So never depend on your seller's perception of nuisance. If you think in your experience that most buyers are going to consider it a nuisance, just disclose it. You don't have to tear it apart and make it sound horrible. Just make it in language that's generic that gets the message across. I'm going to take one more look at the chat here. And by the way, there's no more message here. If you ever have a question about disclosure, there's no cost involved in this at all. If you want to send me an In-N-Out burger coupon, that's fine. No, I'm kidding. Double. No, I'm kidding. You can call me anytime, email me anytime. Absolutely no charge at all. And I'm glad to do that all week long, all year long. And I'm glad to help where I can. So if you think it's a nuisance, disclose it. Okay. Let's see. Let me just check and see some of these other things I've got that want to make sure. I might have covered the building permit thing before, but that can be expensive. So let me talk about that, where, sometimes you can tell a property, let's say you have the buyers, you can tell this kind of looks like an add-on. It may not be. Sometimes you can tell, and there's going to be a permit needed. Sometimes add-ons are more obvious. Like I would bet anything that this was not original. I don't know that I want to live in that thing. I think I'd be too nervous, overnight there. Anyway, something that's more generic like this. And, the ADU thing has gone crazy. If you've been in the business a long time, I don't know if you agree with me, but they are nicer looking. They're built better. They can be cheaper than they used to be. And I won't say they're easy to install because you have to have the equipment, but they're installed much more quickly than they used to be. So there's a proliferation of them, and many towns, municipalities want them, and they give you credit if you're a homeowner to put one in because they want to have more people living there and more of a tax base. It could be a man cave or something. It doesn't have to be necessarily a house. Next time, when we're done, if you feel like doing this, go pick up an AVID, wherever it's laying around there on your desk or somewhere in a file in the office, and you'll read this on the first page, black and white, or here, yellow and blue. California law does not require the agent to inspect the following: public records or permits. It's generally interpreted as you shouldn't do it at all. You're not required to. You can if you want, but just don't do it. Also on the AVID, first page, by statute, agent is not obligated to pull permits or inspect public records. So twice on that form, we're told at the start, don't have anything at all to do with verifying building permits or anything of that nature. And in anything of that nature is the trick here, or the catch. And that is because there have been cases, and I know several agents involved in this, where you have a buyer that's staying at the local, let's say, we'll upgrade to the Marriott, not the Motel 6, staying at the local Marriott, waiting for their car to be trucked out to wherever they're moving. And they don't have a lot to do. And they know that the home in that area that they'd like to buy is, or are in escrow to buy, and closing is coming up. They kind of like to know if there were any building permit issues that were needed, especially with that extra bedroom that was added on. So most agents are very keenly aware that they can have nothing at all to do with this. But here's how sensitive it can get. Been several cases where the buyers say, hey, look, we're hanging out here at the hotel. We don't really have much to do. Our cars are being trucked out here. They're not here yet. Could you, if you want to go out to lunch or something, just pick us up at the hotel parking lot, let's say Wednesday or whatever, about 10 o'clock. Take us to City Hall. We know you can't be involved in this, So don't even get out of your car. Just drop us off. We don't have a car, you know, and come back an hour, hour and a half later, and we'll go out and have a nice lunch and take us back home. You don't have to be involved with this a lot at all, let alone a lot. Driving them there and picking them up, you're taking them into City Hall, can be considered as aiding, abetting, or whatever, but aiding in building permit research, and we're supposed to have nothing whatsoever to do with it. So you even have to be careful about that. In the notes that you'll get, here's some wording. I made it up years ago. This is my 32nd year doing just this for a living and statewide, and I think I came up with it 25 years ago. There's nothing, you know, wonderful about it. It's just has worked very well. Buyer, even though it's already in the fine print, it's not a bad idea when you're concerned, especially that there are some issues in the home or parts of the home that definitely needed building permits, but it's an old house and nobody knows what happened years ago, that you would write and have signed or initialed by your client. Buyers are advised, in this case, the buyers, advised to check with the local municipality regarding building permit information. It's a really, really good thing to get out there and have them initial it or whatever. And that can and has saved the day for a lot of agents that I know. Let me just check the time. I'll do it on my phone to make sure I have it. Yeah, 9:55. And let me just go down to something else. Well, this is kind of an interesting thing. It's not, well, it's kind of a disclosure related, but this is really brief, this little segment. There's an increasing number of lawsuits statewide where prospective buyers are looking at a property. The sellers are not home, or maybe they're staying, you know, in the back of the house or something, but let's say they're not home. And not most maybe, but a lot of homes have got all these high-tech gadgets to record theoretically for like a burglar, but they also pick up anything that is said in the room. And they just have an amazing range of like audio range. And so what some sellers do, they're very sensitive about their home and they've got this security stuff in it. They come home after, you know, being here and there during the day while the home open house was going on. And the first thing they want to do is sit down and watch on their television set what prospective buyers were saying about their home. And there may be a qualified buyer that you're representing that really likes the home, but said some kind of disrespectful things about it. And the sellers are so upset with them, they'll never do a deal with that buyer. And it won't happen when it could have happened. So a good thing to do is when we're bringing a prospective buyer to a property, we park like at the curb, say, before we get out of the car, there are security systems in here and they do audio recordings. They're very sensitive. If you have anything to say about the home that might be perceived as negative in any shape or form, save it till we're back in the car. Write it down. Don't say it out loud. Don't even whisper it. Don't even use sign language. It can really, really make a difference. Okay, I don't have time for the homeless. Well, let me just show you this. This will kind of wrap it up for us. Good question to ask when you have the listing is, what will your neighbors tell the buyers about this property? And very often it's, well, nothing. Everybody gets along and never had to fix anything. And that's probably the most common, especially in newer neighborhoods. But sometimes something is going on or has happened in the past, happens on a regular basis, that the sellers are so used to it, they don't even think about disclosing it. So one such example is, see this home here, the blue, light blue home and a fence. I live near here, and I would say twice a year, in this case, 2 cars in the space of a week crashed into the fence. Usually it's about 1 a month. They don't hurt anybody. They just hit the fence and stop there. Now, the reason why this happens over and over again? Well, there's an intersection nearby that has a traffic signal that some people that have not been in the area find a bit confusing as to when to turn or what to turn or how fast to go when you're turning. And so this happens. Now, this is something that if it's not disclosed by this seller, neighbors may have pictures like I do, and they're going to show the photos to the buyer. A lot of them will. So that's what it looks like most of the time on the right, but a few weeks ago it looked like that. So a good question to ask is to your seller in a quiet moment, serious moment. Is there anything that your neighbors are going to tell your buyers about this property? Anything that happens here? This is part of my farm area. I know it very well. I live down the street, but I don't live right here. Anything you can think of, they're going to say that may be negative, and really make it a serious sit down, brief conversation, and that can really help. Okay, we are out of time. And if you ever want me back, I do all new material. I sound like a comedian here, but I can do a lot more PowerPoint material. I want to thank the invite from your management, Century 21 Jordan Link. Been doing seminars, I'm going to say, I'd like to say 25 years for you, maybe more. Choice Home Warranty and Legal Services of America. And I will get the notes off to your management in just a few minutes, and they can disperse them if they want to. So thank you. And I will say adios, goodbye, and have a great day. And call me anytime with any questions you have, and invite me back. If you want to invite me back in 6 months, I can have all new material. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate you.
Okay.